Erza Scarlet is one of my favorite characters in Fairy Tail, and one of my favorite characters in media in general. As I often say, she is the Beyoncé of anime. A strong, highly skilled woman who constantly seeks to outdo herself, who strives for excellence as she pushes herself and those around her beyond their limits, and one whose legacy demonstrates the icon she would become. I'm just saying, I don't know when Erza's birthday is, but there's gotta be some fucking Virgo in that goddamn chart, I'm telling you. Fairy Tail in general has a lot of great female characters, and honestly, they carry both the show and the guild. Without these ladies, Fairy Tail just would not be as fun or as engaging. And also, in universe, that guild would have been on fire years ago. Like, it just would have been gone without its women. And both Lucy and Erza are prime examples of that. I've already discussed my love for Lucy, shameless plug, and how I wish the story treated her better, but now it's Erza's time. Except now, instead of talking about how she deserved better from the show, I mean, there were moments that were kind of gross and dirty, but, you know, we'll talk about that later. We're mostly going to talk about how she deserves better from the viewers. This is a call out. This is a call out. Prepare to be dragged by your entire ass. Just imagine Erza walking into the guild hall ready to read a bitch for filth, like read everyone for filth. That's me. That's me right now. There has always been a lot of debate around whether or not Erza is an overpowered Mary Sue, which to me is strange because, well, we'll get there when we get there, but there's another character far worthier of that Sue title, and it ain't Erza. And it ain't even a gal. I have loved Erza since I was introduced to her, and today I'm gonna yell at you about why for 7,000 words. The script is 7,000 words long, so brace yourselves. I don't know how long this video is gonna turn out to be. Naturally, spoilers are ahead for all of Fairy Tail thus far, not including 100-Year Quest. No, I have not read it. I am waiting for the anime. Do not at me, okay? Before we continue, hello! If you're new here, my name is Thomas, aka the Unicorn of War, and I make video essays and commentaries of various animated media, from Winx Club to Fairy Tail to Avatar: The Last Airbender, and sometimes I rewrite them because I'm psychotic. If that sounds interesting to you, then be sure to subscribe and check out my other content. And if you do subscribe, make sure you ring that bell for notifications because YouTube hates creators. It's rough out here. I also have a Patreon where I upload content early and where I'm going to start releasing exclusive patron-only series soon, and which also gives you access to my private Discord server, the Union of War. If you would like to get in touch with me a bit more, the server is probably your best bet. You can also follow me over on Instagram and Threads. Now, without further ado, let's talk about the best ginger in all of anime. Now, we're going to be mostly focusing on the highlights of Erza's story across the series, specifically the first season of the anime, from her introduction to the Battle of Fairy Tail, along with some iconic moments during the Oración Seis, Edilus, Grand Magic Games, and Alvarez arcs. We're also going to be talking about some weird shit that they do to her in the Tartaros arc, which, we'll get there when we get there. Ooh, girl. Ooh, girl. When we first hear about Erza, it's through Natsu, Happy, and Gray. Lucy has yet to meet her, but from what she's heard, Erza, also known as Titania, Queen of the Fairies, is built up to be this scary monster that everyone is terrified of.
What's she like?
Scary. Wild animal. A vile beast.
More like a full-on monster!
She's not only one of Fairy Tail's strongest members, but also one that is deeply intimidating, even to powerhouses like Natsu or Gray. It's not entirely inaccurate. When she arrives at the guild hall, she's immediately talking about how everyone else's behavior is dragging the guild's name through the mud.
Word is, Fairy Tail is causing nothing but trouble as of late. Master Makarov may not care, but I most certainly do.
She lectures everyone on their vices and bad habits, which seems to make them either fearful or annoyed from getting dragged by their whole entire ass. It's here that we can see she's incredibly invested in Fairy Tail's reputation as a guild. She demands nothing less than excellence from her guildmates and is not afraid to call them out when they stray from that gold standard. She's all about tough love. Though admittedly, this does also show that her people skills could use some work. A lot of work. A lot. Oh my god. She doesn't even seem to realize how the others are interpreting what she says, totally oblivious to how feared she is by her own guildmates. However, her softer side does come out a bit when she meets Lucy, a newcomer to the guild. Though Lucy's nervous about letting Erza down and terrified by how scared she makes Natsu and Gray.
Are Natsu and Gray here?
We're just hanging out like good friends tend to do.
Hey!
Why is Natsu talking like Happy?
Erza is still eager to work with Lucy, not even minding when Lucy tags along on their supposedly dangerous mission. And honestly, Natsu and Gray kinda deserve the fear that Erza strikes into their hearts. They really needed to have a third party tell them to get the fuck over their petty rivalry, to focus on getting the damn job done. Once we confront Eisenwald, the Assassin Guild, Erza gets to show off her swordsmanship, as well as her magical ability, the Knight. She can transform into different suits of magical armor, which grant her unique abilities. The most impressive of the bunch, and the most memorable, is the Heaven's Wheel, resembling an angel as she decimates most of the Eisenwald goons with a rain of swords. As show-offy as this can feel, it's also showing her not wasting a moment to stop her enemies, as this attack is usually great for crowd control. Before this, Erza had already exhausted herself by using nearly all of her magic power on the Magic Mobile, racing after Eisenwald once the group discovered that they had the deadly Lullaby Flute, an artifact which kills anyone who hears its melody.
There's no telling how many innocent people could die if Lullaby Song is played. I can't slow down. We have to stop Eisenwald before it's too late.
But at this rate, you're gonna use up all your magic before we even start fighting.
She's appalled by the cruelty and maliciousness of Eisenwald, especially its leader, Aragorn the Reaper. We see here that Erza's desire to get the job done comes from a place of apprehending those she deems as wrongdoers harming the innocent. She's focused on protecting the people of Onibus, even if it means exhausting herself by busting out Heaven's Wheel after she'd already sapped nearly all of her magic getting there. Oh, and more scaring the people around the station without meaning to. You gotta love the lack of people skills.
Excuse me, what's going on?
Why would I tell you, lady?
What's going on?
I love her so much. Yes, Your Honor, I love her. However, Erza at this point has a tendency to fixate on following the rules. To a damn T. She's very much lawful good, emphasis on lawful. She believes in doing things by the book, following the rules set by the guild and those in power, and never straying from them no matter what, and no matter who the authority is coming from. This is established when the Magic Council arrests her for the destruction wrought while apprehending Eisenwald and dispatching the Lullaby Demon. It's largely due to the Magic Council's disdain for Fairy Tail as a guild, seeking to discourage them by making an example of one of its strongest members, and hopefully even down the line, just eradicating the guild altogether. They arrest her, and despite the others' protest, Erza goes along with it, willingly being put on trial. It's during this we meet Seagrain, a member of the Magic Council who seems to know Erza quite well, and is incredibly creepy, oh my god.
Don't let a word slip about you-know-what. For both of our sakes.
He's arguably the most defensive of Fairy Tail on the council, white knighting for them at every turn, though this exchange hints there's a nefarious ulterior motive. Perhaps to do with Miss Ultier? Your motive? I hate myself. Seriously, guys, it's right there. It's right there. It's this. Her name might as well be Suspicia. Suspicia Adams. What? I don't know. Anyhow, Natsu tries busting Erza out in the dumbest way possible, making an absolute mockery out of Titania's iconography.
I'm the crazy lady in armor you old-timers have been looking for! If you've got a problem with the way me and my guild do things, you can fight me!
But you know, he's trying his best. My sweet baby boy is so stupid. As a result, both Erza and Natsu wind up in jail for the night. It's only temporary, again more focused on making an example out of Erza more than anything else. However, despite knowing the council's ulterior motives, Erza still goes along with it because of her need to abide by the law.
The council is using me as an example to remind everyone that if you break the law, you'll be punished. It helps them maintain order in the magical world.
To her, lawfulness and morality are equivalent, despite the fact that that is a fallacy, as proven by just glancing for 5 minutes at history. Like, just, girl, She learns this in the Galuna arc. Lucy and Natsu decide to take an S-Class request, a special job meant only for the S-Class wizards, the strongest members of the Fairy Tail Guild. To specify, of the Fire Fairies, Natsu's little team, only Erza is S-Class. To take an S-Class request when you yourself are not S-Class is strictly against guild rules, and also a good way to get yourself killed. Still, this does not stop Lucy and Natsu from taking it to, pay that rent, gotta pay it somehow, and even kidnapping Gray when he tries to stop them. Erza is then sent after them, befriending a weird group of pirates along the way.
When rules are broken, the guilty must be punished. And that is all I can tell you.
She's so cool.
They don't matter, but I find this strangely cute, so I'm gonna mention it anyway. However, when Gray decides to see the mission through to save the villagers' lives, and to stop Leon from freeing the demon Deliora, both of whom he shares a dark past with, shameless plug on my Gray video, Erza still demands that they be brought back to the guild. They have broken guild rules, and as such, they have disgraced the Fairy Tale Guild and must be brought to justice. Just imagine Amelia from Slayers yelling about justice. That's Erza right now, except much more violently. To her, it does not matter what is happening on the island, rationalizing her priorities by saying the villagers will be better off waiting for a properly qualified wizard to take the job.
The villagers would be better served by wizards who are cleared for S-class. You're not qualified.
How can you be so heartless?
What did you say?
But they can't wait. Gray stands up to her, literally standing before Erza's drawn sword and challenging her resolve. His resolve causes Erza's to waver. The emphasis on saving the villagers in time makes Erza question herself and question her priorities, to where she decides to help the others defeat Leon's cult and vanquish Deliora.
For me, there's no other choice to be made. I can't walk away from what I know is right.
She's made to question herself and her actions, and the narrative shows she is in fact in the wrong for her fixation on following the rules over helping people. And likely, this idea of her being seen as heartless because of this fixation is a sore spot for her, given her past trauma. From here, we get to see Erza's true colors, especially during the Phantom Lord arc. She's not that big of a pivotal player here outside of her fight with José, Phantom's guildmaster, but Makarov being incapacitated for most of the arc forces Erza to step up as Fairy Tale's de facto leader. She calls for Fairy Tale to retreat from their attack on Phantom's base when Makarov is cursed, and when Phantom attacks the guild hall directly, Erza steps up to defend it, then leads the others in refusing to hand Lucy over to José.
We would never betray her like that! You'd have to kill us first!
I absolutely love Erza's fight against José, where she calls out his pettiness and willingness to destroy so many innocent lives just for the sake of his ego.
So, we're fighting for our lives just because you've had a fit of jealousy?
We are the dominant guild.
How could you? And for such a petty reason!
That said, and content warning here, we're going to be discussing self-sacrifice and topics of side here, so if you can't handle that, I'll include a time code for when we're skipping over it. It's not that in-depth, I felt like it should be brought up. Erza tries to sacrifice herself here when José prepares to kill her, making an example out of her to discourage the rest of her guild before slaughtering them all.
I'd rather die than cause my guildmates to surrender. I leave the rest up to you. Not so.
Erza has a tendency to try to sacrifice herself for others. She views her own life as unimportant and worthy of being thrown away for her hope for the well-being of others. However, the story does not glorify her doing this. In fact, she's stopped both times by other characters, this time by Makarov when he returns to face José himself.
But how?
We see here that the narrative is saying, actually no, self-sacrifice is not necessary and actually harmful to both yourself and the people you love. It's the lesson Erza has not quite grasped yet, but I do think this was foreshadowing her struggle with valuing herself and her life for later. Then we get into Erza's arc, Tower of Heaven. The first season generally gives each of the Fire Fairies their own arcs. Galuna for Gray, Phantom for Lucy, theoretically, Tower of Heaven for Erza, and low-key everything for Natsu, more on that later. During this arc, Erza is forced to confront her past, and we delve deeper into her history. Erza was an orphan growing up in the quaint Rosemary village before it was attacked by cultists who worshipped the Dark Lord Zareth. These cultists would attack several villages, kidnapping all sorts of people and bringing them back to the Tower of Heaven, a ritual site believed to have been constructed by Zareth himself. Apparently there are several towers across the world. The tower is also known as the R system, as it's actually meant to use forbidden magic to resurrect a person by sacrificing many more in exchange. These people were then made into slaves, forced to construct the tower in terrible living conditions, often brutalized and tortured when they tried to escape or simply didn't work quickly enough. It's here the young Erza met her group of friends: Sho, Simon, Miliana, Wally, and Jalal. She also met Old Man Rob, a former member of Fairy Tale and an old friend of Makarov's, who had also been imprisoned here. This little group looked out for each other. Their friendship gave them something to cling to in this horrible place, and Rob's stories of the Fairy Tale wizards also gave Erza hope for a better life outside the tower.
If I become a wizard, does that mean I'll be able to fly through the sky on a broom?
I can't guarantee that. But you will gain magical powers of some sort.
Jalal even gave Erza her last name of Scarlet for her red hair. I'm gonna cry.
Your hair's pretty is all. How about we make your last name Scarlet?
This treatment reached a fever pitch as Erza was tortured by the cultists, even losing an eye in the process.
Your eye? What did she do to deserve this? What did any of us do?
Trying to save her, Jalal took her place, which drove Erza over the edge. Taking a weapon, she fought back against the cultists, telling the other prisoners to do the same.
We can't escape and they're not gonna set us free! So if we want out of here, we have to fight! For our lives! For our freedom!
She posits that their captors will never free them willingly. They will never be given their freedom, and so they must take it or die trying. Erza literally starts a whole ass revolution at the age of, I think, 8? What a fucking icon. During the revolt, Rob sacrifices himself. The trauma pushes Erza past her limits. Her magic is revealed as a result, unleashing a barrage of swords and turning the tides against the cultists. However, before they can all escape on the boats, Jalal reveals he has been approached by the supposed spirit of Zareth, who wants him to finish the construction on the Tower of Heaven.
There's no freedom in this world. True freedom lies with me.
Jalal has been completely broken by his time here in the tower. He has given in to darkness and despair, believing the world is a cruel, dark, unforgiving place, and now believes that he must meet that with his own darkness and cruelty. Becoming the new dictator of the tower, he perpetuates this horrible cycle.
If you want to leave so badly, then I'm not going to stop you. But you'll have to go alone. There's no way I could finish the tower's construction by myself. So I'm going to keep the others here with me.
When Erza stands against him and wants to leave, Jalal scorns her desire to leave. He sees her as a traitor, exiling her, but saying that if she should ever reveal what actually happened between them, he would slaughter Erza's friends.
If word were to get out, then I'd have no choice but to destroy the tower and everyone inside it. Set one foot on this land, and I'll kill your friends.
Erza was then forced to burn the boats and take the blame for stranding everyone at the Tower of Heaven, leaving them to idolize Jalal as their hero so they would willingly finish constructing the tower for him. Erza, meanwhile, would wash ashore, battered, betrayed, and alone. The person she started that uprising for turned against her, turning her loved ones against her. With nowhere to go, Erza found her way to the guild that Old Man Rob was once part of, Fairy Tale. It's here she was also introduced to Porliusica, another friend of Makarov and reclusive healer. Erza would receive a prosthetic eye here. Though this eye couldn't produce tears when she cried, she was still grateful for it, deciding to focus on the bright side and thank Porliusica for her help, despite her cold demeanor.
It's okay, ma'am. It's not your fault. It's probably because I've cried so much I don't have many tears left.
Erza would then grow up in the Fairy Tale Guild as a sort of big sister to her guildmates, especially to the constantly feuding Natsu and Grey, often breaking up their fights and telling them to get their shit together. Finding a new life here, Erza flourished, becoming the revered S-class wizard Titania that she is today. She had left the darkness of her past behind. Unfortunately, her past wasn't quite done with her, as Jalal relied on Erza for a crucial part of his scheme for the R system.
I'll never forget how happy Erza looked that day.
She couldn't stop smiling, but little did I know that smile would soon vanish.
During a vacation with the Fire Fairies, where Erza, against her usual nature, lets herself relax and enjoy some downtime, her peace is shattered by the return of her old friends.
No! Don't hurt her! No! Please, Wally!
Still believing Erza betrayed and abandoned them, Sho, Simon, Miliana, and Wally, who all now possess magic of their own, quickly dispatch the Fire Fairies and kidnap Erza, taking her back to the now completed Tower of Heaven. Once the other Fire Fairies and Juvia arrive to help, Erza reveals the full truth to her friends, both old and new, which is difficult for her old friends to hear, that they were manipulated by their hero and friend into turning against another friend. Erza wants to face and eliminate Jalal herself, believing that she'll die as a result. She knows Jalal is a threat, but she believes that this is her fight, and doesn't want to involve her friends, even if they volunteer their help.
But you can't help me now. The odds are stacked against me. Win or lose this battle, I'm staring death in the face.
This is also in line with her struggle with vulnerability during this arc. Her armor is both literal and metaphorical, a defensive wall around her heart, one which was likely constructed after experiencing Jalal's horrific betrayal as a child.
I always feel more at ease wearing armor. Although, as a wardrobe choice, I guess it's not the most feminine.
And honestly, I don't blame her. Having someone you love do such horrible things to you, abusing you, it's no wonder it's hard for her to trust and to wear her heart on her sleeve.
I decided that in order to convince everyone that I was strong, I would hide my heart away inside a suit of armor. There, no one could see that it was broken.
Erza is a kind, caring, compassionate person with a big heart, but she struggles letting that show, believing that she has to be strong and guarded at all times. Otherwise, disaster will follow.
I thought my armor protected me, but it did more harm than good. It shielded me from pain, but it kept me distanced from others. My heart was too guarded to connect with anyone.
Just look at what happened at the resort. What was supposed to be a fun, laid-back vacation with her friends ended in them nearly dying as Erza's past came back to literally drag her back to the source of her trauma. Erza's fixation on protecting herself is directly challenged in her fight with Ikaruga, an assassin contracted by Jalal. None of Erza's armors are able to stand up to Ikaruga. Each one, despite its strength, is quickly torn apart by her blade. This forces Erza to use an ability that she has rarely called upon, the Clear Heart clothing. Aside from Heaven's Wheel, it's arguably her most iconic armor, though armor is a liberal use of the word.
I can't rely on my armor anymore. I know I'm strong enough to defeat you without it. Now!
It sacrifices all defense for increased strength and agility. It is with this acceptance of vulnerability that she is able to defeat Ikaruga and then move on to her real enemy, Jalal. She does a great job at first to kick his ass, ready to kill him for all the horrible things that he's done, and to prevent him from activating the R system.
I've cast off all my fears, including you.
This is not the weak girl I remember.
Unfortunately, Jalal is a sneaky fucking snake, manipulating Erza and convincing her that he's just been manipulated by Zareth.
So all this time you were just another of Zareth's victims.
It's my own fault. I let my weakness get the best of me.
In reality, he played her like a damn fiddle. And to explain, we need to go back to that weirdo on the Magic Council, Seagrain. You see, Seagrain claimed that he and Jalal were twins. Yes, it is as stupid as it fucking sounds. He used this cover to gain political power within the kingdom of Fiore, and to keep an eye on Erza when she had left the tower. In reality, Seagrain was Jalal's astral projection, and he, with Ultir's help, had been trying to coax the Magic Council into firing their Etherion cannon, basically a magical nuke, at the Tower of Heaven, inadvertently activating it for his plan. Once again, Erza was planning on sacrificing herself by keeping Jalal busy, hoping that the cannon would destroy the tower, even if it killed her along with Jalal. Unfortunately, Jalal was hoping to use this to activate the tower, and use Erza as a sacrifice to resurrect Zareth. He even places a binding spell on Erza when they hug, because right now, he's a fucking snake. Literally, I think the binding spell even hisses when it's in use.
What's happening to my arm?
It's just a bind snake. I slipped it onto you during our heartwarming embrace earlier.
It's here Natsu comes to her rescue. Now, I do wish it was all of the Fire Fairies to emphasize them working well as a team, especially because Natsu in particular has a bad habit of being a spotlight stealer, taking over arcs that have literally nothing to do with him. But here, it gets a baby bit of a pass because Natsu calls out Erza's need to sacrifice herself.
Promise me you won't do something like that again.
I won't.
Promise!
I promise.
When she tries to do so to deactivate the tower, she sees a vision of her own funeral, where her guildmates are sobbing messes over her death. Her loss did not lead to a better life for her friends.
I never thought things would turn out this way. I wanted to save them so that they could go on living happily. I never meant to hurt them like this.
This really drives home that sacrificing yourself for the sake of those you love is never the way. You would be missed. It would transfer your pain to the people that you love, and you deserve to enjoy a long, happy life with your loved ones.
You don't die for your friends. You live for them. Because their future wouldn't be as happy without you in it.
Once Erza chooses to live, she and Natsu defeat Jalal, and Erza is finally free. She says goodbye to her old friends as they decide to see the world for themselves, using her iconic farewell armor to see them off. Erza has conquered her past, and now can embrace the love she is surrounded by in the present. From here, Erza continues to be a bad bitch. When Jalal returns in the Arashion Sais arc, with amnesia, just go with it, she reminds him thoroughly of his crimes and is prepared to slay him. When Jalal decides he needs to die for his crimes, Erza instead tells him that he has to live and atone for his crimes.
You have to atone for your sins! It means nothing if you die now, ignorant of what you've done! Own your guilt and live! Jalal!
Dying would be far too easy. It would be an escape from having to live with what he has done, and so Jalal decides to live to help make up for his past. Through it all, the message is clear. You must live to enjoy your life and to make this world better. Even if you have done wrong, you must live and atone and set right what you have wronged. This continues into the Daedalus arc, where the eponymous world of Daedalus contains doubles of the characters that we know and love, but who have lived incredibly different lives and boast different personalities and running gags. Here, Erza Nightwalker is known as the Fairy Hunter, working directly under the King of Daedalus to oppress its people and hunt criminals, including the only remaining magical guild, Fairy Tail. In Daedalus, magic seems to come from nature and the land rather than the people themselves. Because of this, magic among wizards is a finite resource in Daedalus, and the kingdom hopes to create more for themselves by kidnapping Earthland's Fairy Tail and turning them into power. Nightwalker defends this, saying that Scarlet has never felt powerless, having plenty of magic of her own.
If you felt the desperation that comes from being powerless, you'd understand why we needed to live!
In truth, we know our Erza has faced incredibly harsh realities despite her magic. In the face of despair, she always chooses justice and helping others. She believes in the goodness of people, as opposed to Nightwalker's cynicism.
It's our nature to stand up for those we hold dear, and to take up arms to protect our suffering comrades!
During Grand Magic Games, it's after a 7-year time skip where most of the characters have been absent through plot things. As a result, the Fairy Tail Guild has fallen from grace, now considered weak in old news because it lost its strongest, most respected members. The guild hopes to restore their reputation through the Grand Magic Games in the capital city, where they take on other guilds throughout Fiore, including their replacement, Sabretooth. Sabretooth is incredibly ruthless, basically writing off friendship and compassion as stupid and gay, whereas Fairy Tail knows friendship is indeed stupid and gay, and that's why it's great. One of Sabretooth's most ruthless members is Minerva, daughter of its master Giemma, and a powerful sorceress in her own right. During the tournament, Minerva brutalizes Lucy when she refuses to give up on behalf of her friends, scorning Lucy's love of her guild and courage to stand her ground.
If I quit, after my friends fought so hard, it'd be worse than betrayal! Hurt me all you want, I don't give a damn! I'll win! My guild will be #1 again!
Given Erza's strength, she stands as a pillar of all that Fairy Tail stands for, and Minerva wants to tear that the fuck down. Unfortunately, she makes the mistake of hurting people Erza loves.
You tormented my friends, Lucy, Kagura, Miliana, and you took pleasure in it. I'm past the point of anger.
We'll get to how Erza decks Minerva later, but it lives rent-free in my mind, as does this line.
Nothing can save you!
How can you still be standing?
I told you, I'll keep standing until I put you in the dirt.
It's a prime example of compassion and love as strength. Erza may be loving, but she's also fierce and unrelenting if you cross her or those she loves. You do not insult Fairy Tail and walk away with all of your limbs intact.
Out of all the guilds you could have declared war on, you chose Fairy Tail. And that never ends well.
Now, Tartaros is generally hailed as the best, darkest arc of the show, and honestly, I get why people say that. It's the one time the show feels like it's embracing a darker, more somber, serious tone where the stakes are genuinely high. Arguably at their highest throughout the whole show. But there are certain parts I am not as fond of, including Erza's torture at the hands of Kyoka. See, Tartaros is one of the Barum Alliance, the 3 most powerful dark guilds on the continent of Ishgar. By this point, 2 of them, the Aracion Seis, also known as the 6 Spanish Prayers, and Grimoire Heart, have already been defeated, leaving Tartaros as the last one standing. And they're also the scariest. They're made up of the 9 demon gates, some of the strongest demons created by Zeref, the Dark Lord. Early on, Erza and Mira Jane are captured by Tartaros, likely knowing that they needed to be quickly removed from the board in order to secure their victory against Fairy Tail. That much is fine, but as a result, Erza is tortured by Kyoka, goddess of the slave planet, aka Chickenfoot. Considering the title, you would think this would tie into Erza's own past, especially given the cult that enslaved her also worshipped Zeref. However, there is no real connection. Not a big deal, but I do wish that they did something there with that, though I am here for Erza killing slave owners. But that's not my real issue. Nah, the real issue here is still the weird sexualization shit going on. We'll talk more in depth about the sexualization problem later, but Erza gets tortured by Kyoka, all the while the camera just ogles Erza's body. It has weird ass shots of Kyoka, like, stop, why, stop. And we also include a stereotypical hentai octopus which electrocutes Erza. Apparently Kyoka's into some freaky shit. I swear to God, if this gets me fucking demonetized, I might fight a bitch. I will fight Chickenfoot. It's much worse in the manga where Erza is just flat out naked, but it still feels gross in the anime and needlessly sexualized for no other reason than to appeal to the men watching. Honestly, I like to pretend that this part of the arc just doesn't exist, but I felt like I needed to just mention how gross it was so that I know I didn't hallucinate all of this bullshit and I can get paid as reparations for having to sit through it. At the very least, it does make it more cathartic when Erza beats the ever-loving shit out of Kyoka later on and turns her into KFC. Kyoka's power enhances the pain experienced by others, making every attack excruciating, breaking many of Erza's armors and leaving her in crippling agony. It even takes away her sight, which to me echoes back to her losing one of her eyes at the hands of the cult. Still, Erza continues to fight back, defeating Kyoka and restoring her senses, but still clearly scarred by her experiences.
Those memories will haunt me to my grave. Will they always make me tremble?
That said, not much is really done with her recovery afterwards. There's setup of how this battle was incredibly difficult for her psychologically, but there's no real follow-through going into the Avatar or Alvarez arcs, with Erza just kinda going back to her normal kick-ass self. Still, Erza does get a nice storyline in the Alvarez arc where she confronts Irene, the first Dragon Slayer, and her mother.
That's a rude thing to say to your mother.
Gasp. I know, I never would have guessed that this woman with this red hair and this facial structure is related to Erza. Who could have guessed? See, Irene has her own tragic backstory, in which her becoming a dragon slayer resulted in her losing her humanity, succumbing to a process called dragonification. Through this, she would become a dragon, losing the ability to sleep, taste, or generally enjoy a normal life. She had hoped to escape this curse by using Erza, whom Irene was still pregnant with, as a new body for her to inhabit. But she couldn't go through with it. Ultimately, Irene left Erza in Rosemary Village, which would eventually lead to Erza finding her true family at Fairy Tale.
Why I was able to find my true family. With their love and care, I could overcome my pain and begin to heal!
When the two confront each other, Erza doesn't care about their blood connection. Her family is Fairy Tale, and right now, she believes that she has lost her father, Master Makarov.
I've only had one parent in my life. His name was Master Makarov.
Her home is being invaded. The lives of her friends and family are in danger. She does not give a shit who her birth mother is, especially if she's one of the people invading her home and attacking her family. Yes, even when she destroys the meteor inbound for the planet, I am here for it. Even with all of her broken bones, Erza channels all her remaining magic and strength into her finger to flick and yeet herself into the sky and then destroy the meteor in the atmosphere before impact. What a fucking legend! I just know if Natsu was doing this shit, y'all would be screaming and we wouldn't be debating on whether she's a Sue or not. I know this. I just know it in my bones. I know it in my spirit. Despite all the pain that Erza has been through, no matter what she endures, she continues to push herself back up off the ground and do the right thing. She fights for her friends. She fights for her home. She fights for herself. She is always striving to do her best and encourage others to do the same. She believes in the goodness of people and that people do whatever they can to protect each other and protect those most in need. Her ability to hold on to hope and inspire hope in others rivals even Katara, the Southern Water Tribe's only known hope-bending master. And moreover, I absolutely love how outside of working hours, Erza loves cute shit. She's actually quite feminine, enjoying dressing up and looking fabulous.
That's right, there's a casino here, isn't there? In that case... Wow! So how do I look?
You look great.
She's also got a real obsession for cute things. This would include baking, a hobby she would literally go to the ends of the earth for to make the ultimate cake.
If you insist, I will gladly join you on this quest for cake.
Nobody was even talking to her.
Oh, and let's not forget her most important dream, to enjoy the ideal picnic with her guildmates.
I've always dreamed of having one. A picnic.
Okay.
End of the world be damned if Erza does not get to lay down on a blanket on a grassy field and enjoy sweets and treats beneath a clear sky. Bitches will die. Ooh, I like the rhyme of that. I should put that on a shirt. Honestly, she reminds me a lot of Sailor Jupiter. Strong, feared, and often perceived as masculine by others, but actually quite soft and feminine at her core. She's still a bad bitch, but she doesn't have to sacrifice her femininity to do so. Strength and femininity are not mutually exclusive. Really, she's basically the Wonder Woman of Fairy Tale. That was my first thought when I met her, and I still feel this. I just do. As mentioned before, Erza's magic is called the Night. Different armors grant her different powers. I will say I do wish her magic was explained a bit more, mostly because I think it'd be cool to see her as a huge weapons buff and forger. Maybe she discovers some armors on quests and modifies them for herself, and others she designs and forges herself. I don't know, I think that would be really cool to see, and may or may not be a thing in a hypothetical fairy tale rewrite. You can't prove anything. Let me know if you would read it on Patreon. Now again, we're gonna have to talk about some issues with the show, though this is less a fairy tale thing and more an anime / general media thing, and I preface this by saying I love Fairy Tale, okay? I say these things out of love, because love is criticizing something because you want what you love to become its best self. If someone you loved was walking towards a cliff, you'd slap the shit out of them and go, what the fuck are you doing? Fairy Tale has a sexualization problem. It relies a lot on sexualizing its female characters in moments where it is not necessary, and it detracts and distracts from the overall story. Now, some would argue that the show also sexualizes men, and you're not wrong exactly. However, when we're talking about sexualization, we also have to discuss who that sexualization is designed to appeal to and why it's there. And the answer of who it's supposed to appeal to is straight men. It's the men. It's the men. It's the menses. I say this loving you, men. I should know I'm gay. The creators know their audience is made up largely of younger straight men, and as such they use sexualized female characters to garner their attention. The men in Fairy Tail are not given their abs and muscles to be attractive necessarily, but rather as an ideal male body for the straight men watching to project themselves onto. You too can be the hot buff man who gets the gal. They may appeal to the gays, and sometimes they do, speaking as a gay myself, but it's all meant for straight guys. And that, my darlings, is what we call the male gaze. And that's gaze with a Z and no Y, by the by. Ooh, that should be on a shirt too. I'm on a roll. Also, I want to specify this is not a problem exclusive to Fairy Tail. This is a thing with anime in general and media in general, because most media is produced and made by straight men, largely for straight men. Our world in general is kind of designed to go, let's appeal to the men specifically. We don't really care what anyone else wants. You can see this reflected in a lot of Erza's armors, where sexualization takes priority over design in most of her looks. Heaven's Wheel is iconic, but goes out of its way to emphasize Erza's breasts and waist. Sea Empress is just fucking hideous to look at. Ugly colors aside, it's actually kind of comical how overtly sexualized this outfit is. To the point it doesn't even feel like it's meant to look appealing outside of intended sexiness. Because it doesn't. It's fucking hideous. Oh my god, who made this? Why? Why is it so ugly? What is that color palette? All of that nonsense aside, I do still love most of her armors and their powers. Again, Heaven's Wheel is fucking iconic. I'm obsessed with these metallic angel wings and the wing motif in general throughout the look, and the sword array attacks it gives Erza. Also, a fan of the Elemental Empress armors, by which I mean Flame and Thunder. They did the work, they understood the assignment. Sea Empress can go to fucking prison, electric chair. I like the variety that these armors give Erza, allowing her to be a jack of all trades with her different looks. The big tails in her Flame Empress armor are absolutely adorable, and she looks great in this combo of red, yellow, and black. Thunder Empress is criminally underrated. She looks like a goddamn Valkyrie, with one of the cutest braided ponytails I've ever fucking seen, and wielding a goddamn lightning spear. Loxus could never. Morningstar is also underrated and underutilized. I'm not a fan of the base outfit, but I do like these little orange and yellow capelets and this hairstyle with the buns. Not to mention the idea of Erza wielding the power of light is awesome, and it also showed us how Erza is able to wield her swords with her feet. What a fucking legend, I swear. Armadura Fairy doesn't really get used very often, which is a shame. I would love to see how it embodies the qualities of Fairy Tail that Erza loves most. The pink look is cute, but those swords look like they're toys. I'm sorry, they look like toys. They look like they're plastic. Nakagami is a bit cooler. I love this deep green or teal with the bits of red and gold, especially with the lion pauldrons and the piece of floating fabric framing Erza. It really communicates the power behind this armor. However, I'm not sure how the fuck she got it. This goes into the explanation of her armors, where somehow this armor in particular has apparently existed long before Erza got her hands on it. Levi reads about its history and how it works in whatever books, which... Okay then, but how the fuck did Erza get it? She's never mentioned it before and we didn't ever see her getting it. That said, I don't mind her using it to defeat Minerva, as it gives her a burst of ultimate magic at the cost of Erza being incredibly weakened and fatigued for a long time afterwards. It leaves her limping and exhausted when the other Fairy Tail girlies confront Sting, and leaves her helpless, unable to fight back at even half strength when the city is besieged by dragons. So my only real issue is, where the fuck did this armor even come from? Where did it go? Where'd you come from, Cotton Eye Joe? I'm a menace. And again, clear heart clothing. I adore the symbolism behind this look, and the aesthetic is everything. The bandages for a top, the red pants with flame designs, and the ponytail. It is everything, Your Honor. It's fucking everything. Now, Erza is often called a Mary Sue. Overpowered, too perfect, and needing to be put in her place, according to some. Allegedly. To dissect this, we need to establish what exactly a Mary Sue is. The term originates from fan fiction, referring to a female character, oftentimes the self-insert of a female author, or in the words of Maya Wilkes, an authoress, who is deemed far too idealized. She is loved by all, even her enemies. She's perfect in every single way, not a flaw to be seen, and even the flaws she is purported to have make her quirky or fun, rather than serve as actual hindrances or vices. And most of all, The universe bends to her whims. She'll break magic systems, character motivations, and even reality itself just to make everything about her. She is the center of all, the singularity. For her. The male equivalent is Gary Stu, by the by. That'll be relevant later. Unfortunately, the term has been overused in recent years, often used whenever an audience just dislikes any female character. The actual analysis into her Sue-ness is not discussed. Rather, she's just assumed to be a Sue because she's strong or because she's just, even if she doesn't meet the requirements of a Sue. When a female character is written poorly, she'll be called a Mary Sue automatically, even when she doesn't meet the requirements. Whereas male characters are allowed to suck without being Gary Stews, female characters do not get this luxury. They get twice the suspicion and twice the ire. Whether they're written well or poorly, there's no escape. The femmes can't catch a break. I believe Erza falls victim to this tendency to rush to call a female character a Mary Sue, even when she isn't. Because she is a powerful S-class wizard who often accomplishes heroic and miraculous feats, those actions are viewed as examples of her Sue-ness on sight. However, this feels like a very superficial reading of her character. Her strive for excellence is often written off as her being portrayed as perfect and flawless and deeply overpowered. This ignores the hard work that Erza puts into her craft. She does struggle, she does fall, and she continually gets back up. The clearest example that comes to mind is her fight against Midnight in the 6 Spanish Prayers arc. Yes, we're still calling it that. Midnight's magic is mysterious initially, easily taking down Jalal and anyone else who tries to defeat them. However, Erza uses her understanding of magic and observational skills to try and gauge the qualities of Midnight's magic, discovering it is actually reflect her magic.
Although it's true you possess the power to bend weapons and even magic attacks, you cannot use that ability to manipulate the human body. If you could, then surely you would attack my body rather than simply twisting my armor.
By observing how Midnight is only able to manipulate Erza's armor rather than her body, and how Midnight is only able to manipulate one space at a time, she discovers the weaknesses in their magic that will allow her to vanquish them, on top of busting out another favorite of mine, the Infinity Armor.
Huh. I suppose you could consider this armor a third weakness.
What can I say? Purple is her color. What am I saying? Every color is her color. Except that ugly-ass green on Sea Empress. No one will ever look good in that. To say that Erza's skills and talents make her OP feels like it's only because she's a woman who has excelled, as if there's no way she could be this accomplished of her own accord, needing the writing to break the rules for her to make her way to the top. But the male wizards, though? Nah, they're fine. Natsu can blindly punch things harder till the cows come home, but he will never experience a fraction of the suspicion that Erza does through her hard work. Is the Nakagami armor a Deus Ex Machina? Yes, in the way it shows up. But again, it comes with an actual cost, so all it really needed was a reason for it to show up. But that really isn't evidence of Erza being a Mary Sue. If we were gonna call every character who gets a Deus Ex Machina a Mary Sue, girl, the whole cast would be Sues. And most of them would be the men, one pink-haired one in particular. More on that later, at 11. Beyond this, Erza is not perfect. As mentioned before, she's very flawed. She lacks people skills, she's lawfully good to a fault, and she struggles to be vulnerable with others. All of these pose actual problems that the narrative emphasizes she needs to grow from. They are not these romanticized, quirky faults. They're actual hindrances. And especially that tendency to try and sacrifice herself over and over. Erza has to learn to value herself and her life, and that sometimes you have to bend the rules a little to do the right thing. Now, if you want an actual example of a Mary Sue for reference, I give you Bloom from the most recent seasons of Winx Club. Specifically from season 4 onward. Before then, Bloom was a flawed character who was hot-headed, impulsive, ignorant of the magical world, and frighteningly socially awkward at times. She possessed the Dragon Flame, which was considered the strongest magic in the universe, but that did not make her invincible in every fight. Actually, she often struggled because she was the least experienced with magic, having grown up on Earth. But by season 4, once her storyline of saving her homeworld has been completed, the story still feels a desperate need to focus on her. She's depicted as the perfect role model, with every character idolizing her, even her enemies, who have a strange interest in her, despite them having literally nothing to do with her backstory, or story in general. It gets worse with every season, where Bloom literally warps the reality of the story around herself to keep the camera focused on her. No flaws or impulsiveness to be seen. Instead, she's perfect. Now, having suffered through all of that for years on end, watching the Winx Club franchise systemically disembowel itself, I can confidently say Erza is not a Mary Sue. But you wanna know who in this show is? Mr. Natsu Dragneel. Again, he's a spotlight stealer. He often takes over arcs that have nothing to do with him, or his motivation of finding his dragon dad. Whenever it comes time for Natsu to save the day, he never has to overcome his flaws of being a fucking dumbass. That flaw isn't really ever acknowledged, except for like jokes. It's never actually a flaw he has to work past. Like, literally ever. His impulsiveness and tendency to solve problems by punching them until they die is rewarded time and time again. He doesn't grow from these, instead punching things harder to save the day. The one time it feels like they're about to follow through, when Gildart scares the ever-loving shit out of Natsu in the Tenro arc, they don't commit to this in the rest of the season. He does his usual routine of punching Zonkro harder, and then goes about business as usual. So TLDR, Erza is a great, flawed character who excels at magic. She's not a Mary Sue, and if you feel the need to call her that, maybe ask yourself why you're not holding Natsu to that standard. I am an Erza Scarlet stan through and through. She is a pillar of strength and an utter icon in every sense of the word. She inspires hope in others, but only because she learns to protect that hope within herself, choosing to get back up time and time again. She is indeed the baddest bitch in the room, in every room, and she deserves better. From you. Anyhow, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications, because YouTube hates creators. If you'd like to support myself and the channel further, then please consider pledging your support over on Patreon, or giving a donation via the thanks button below. And of course, consider picking up my book, Disinherbs from the Ashes, featuring gay wizards. A lot of gay wizards in this video. And following me over on Instagram and Threads. I'm the Unicorn of War, and Erza will not stand for your shit show.